Hey, welcome into AMAI, where we talk about a lot of AI stuff in the AM with Justin and Chris. Uh,
Yeah, so
or,
we in our pre-show, we were just talking about um prompt management and the difficulties of prompt management.
Mhm.
And a couple of weeks ago, we did a quick look at an AI client. And that really was what we started talking about was like AI is so powerful. And I think everybody should be using it. But if you think about enterprise use cases, and my experience has been primarily enterprise, like B to E, 10,000 to 100,000 plus clients using
Yeah.
your software from a single customer. Um, those require such levels of permissioning and visibility management,
Mhm.
security, but also like reporting and analytics and seeing what's being used and what's not being used. I'm kind of surprised there isn't a true enterprise client. And that's when Justin said, "All right, hit play, hit record. We need to record this one."
That's
And,
right.
um, so anyway, that's what I was saying. I think it's kind of shocking that someone hasn't built a good enterprise client.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be coming, right? And I can tell you from experience working with AI prompting and AI integrations in production web applications right now today that I'm working on today. We are dealing with all kinds of challenges around prompt management, prompt lifecycle management, um, prompt, um, um, what would be the right word here? Prompt like quality scoring,
Yeah.
right? So there's all kinds of interesting problems where we need to like A/B test different prompts. We need to A/B test different models. We need to continually feed content back in on a regular basis as the models change and make sure that the outputs are still good. Compare new releases against old releases. Do some kind of qualitative scoring on that to know how good it is. And what's interesting too is that this problem gets really complicated. And where it gets complicated, and I'm going to go like deep into the engine room here without giving away any confidential information, is when we build software and we start doing these AI integrations with OpenAI, it's not like we have one prompt and we send them a prompt. We actually have a lot of different chunks of prompts that we assemble in real time, right? And we inject variables into the prompt so that we can customize the prompt at runtime for whatever the user is asking for, right? Well, if you imagine, this makes the problem a fuck ton more complex, right? Because now all of a sudden, in an environment where you are, say, in like this headless, say, CMS type of environment, if you will, and you're managing prompts remotely, or you have some kind of integrated development environment where you're doing prompt management, you actually now have to have the context of the runtime environment also in that environment so that you can inject the right variables at the right time to get the right stuff back and assemble the prompts in the right way, right? So it's interesting when you actually get into the production details of it. It gets pretty complex and nuanced about how you need to replicate the environment that the prompt is being generated so that you can do that kind of testing. It's kind of an interestingly difficult problem to solve.
Yes. I was just as you were mentioning that most people think about prompts as being, you write it and you hit go. But when you're doing it from a programmatic perspective, you're writing the prompts with some logic in the prompts, and you're writing the prompts with the usage of variables.
Mhm.
Um, and so you do some interesting things like what city is this prompt targeting if you're doing geo targeting, which is so like from a content development you can do some really interesting things like what city is it, based upon look at the weather, and then you can have thresholds that say if between this range go down this path, if between this range go down this path, if between this range go down this path, and you can pre-script that for the prompts, um, so that way you can fetch all this info. And what's really interesting is just the way that works, right? It's a lot of the if else comment and statements that you see in normal code apply to prompts as well, but you pre-process that. So what happens is you process some of the data, and then you go, okay, boom. Now here's the prompt that I'm sending to the AI, and it's a flawless prompt, even though it went through 2, 3, 4 stages of pre-processing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a little ETL pipeline kind of before the prompt gets kicked out, right? Sort of.
What was that simple syntax for like if else? I can't remember the name. It was JavaScript, like stupid simple, like maybe HTML syntax. And I'm with the double. Oh man, I'm trying to think.
Markdown?
Not Markdown.
Handlebars?
Handlebars. Yeah, so handlebars is actually used in quite a few preprocessors.
Yep. Yep. I built a funny story about that actually. I built a I'll take a little detour down memory lane here. Years ago, about a decade ago or so, a buddy of mine and I built an Amazon affiliate store generator. I think I've told you the story before. The idea was that we thought that we could essentially flip the idea of affiliate stores on its head. And instead of having one affiliate store that you put a lot of marketing around and it makes a couple $1 million a year or whatever, is what if you had 100,000 affiliate stores and they were all making $20 a year, right? And then you can kind of spread it out horizontally. And so we decided to test this theory. And so we needed a way to build websites at scale. And so what we did is we built this machine, we called it Barracuda, and it essentially what it would do, it would ingest a YAML file, YAML configuration file of like 30 different lines of configuration around the Amazon category, Amazon, all the store configuration. It would ingest that, and then it would output a fully built HTML flat static site, fully rendered images, products, the whole nine. And when we were building that, the hardest part about building that was the generation of the site, right? How do you generate these sites in any kind of tidy way? What's funny is we started to use handlebars. I believe we used handlebars. And we ended up having to build our own renderer from scratch because handlebars was too slow. It was taking like hours to generate a site. So we built our own renderer, our own rendering system, and we got it down to where we could build, I think the fastest we got it is we could build 100,000 page e-commerce site in about 9 minutes off of 130 line configuration file. It was pretty impressive piece of work.
That is pretty cool.
And it did work. The theory did work for 3 weeks. Started making money immediately. And then we got blacklisted from Google. All 22 domains that we had launched all got blacklisted from Google like within 6 hours of each other.
I mean, I've done some of these merges. Well, I scraped the Indeed API, and then I merged it with Wikipedia city information, and I created a page for 3 different types of job positions for every zip code in the U.S. But because they were so specific to that job description, and then I included links from those pages back to my primary site that I actually cared about, and my SEO shot through the roof for 5 months until Google found it, and then
goodbye. Yeah. So a little lesson out there, girls and boys. We talk a lot about programmatic hacking of stuff. Know that the big Google in the sky is watching, and you're not going to get away with just raw dogging it on Google. You do have to provide some actual value.
But getting back to what we were talking about, I am really surprised that there aren't more AI, like there isn't an enterprise focused AI client that's like ready.
Well, there's not even a good any focused. Forget enterprise. There are no, I mean, there are some, there's one that we might take a look at here today. But yeah, there's nothing that is supporting a even moderately complex workflow, which is the reality of how this has to be done. It is shocking. And I do think that this is a class of software that is going to be worth billions of dollars. There will be $1 billion company built in this category over the next 3 years, unless the way that we interact with AI changes drastically over the next year or two. That's the only risk factor. The only thing that I think could change is that it might end up that like the idea of writing prompts and doing it that way may not work, right? Like we talked about, I don't know if we talked about on this show or not, but the code prompting versus regular prompting, right?
We didn't in on this show. I don't think, but code prompting is the idea basically. But again, I think that's very much like how we would write our programmatic prompts.
Right.
It's less code. It's really pseudocode. It's the idea of logic based prompting is really what it should
Logic.
be.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Because yes, you could actually say this is written in Python or this is written in JavaScript, but when they say code prompting, typically it's just like brackets, variable equals, these kind of thing. And so it's like what they're really looking for is logic based.
Yep. Yep.
And logic based is how all programming, except for most programming, that's how most programming is logic based, right?
Ironically, not AI.
I know, and that's why I was like, all except for AI, but AI has been trained on all other programming, right? So
Right.
like,
Right.
it understands the concept of logic based, which by the way, like the default understanding of humanity would be based on logic, right?
Well, yeah. Right.
And then ignoring it.
Yeah, exactly. Learn it and then forget it.
Don't forget it.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think we could take a look and download that client if we want to do that real quick.
Yeah, let's take a look at it. What one? Where was that one?
I gotta scroll through our morning chats.
It's like a 5-letter word. I feel like.
Ooh, Discord is running slow on me this morning. Not templated, not try Sinatra. Oh, come on. It's probably about time I have to redo my reboot my computer here. Discord is crawling. Vello. VELLO.
I knew it was a 5-letter word.
That is an impressive recall. Would have been more impressive if you remembered the name. But
well, yes, I'm good at patterns. I'm less good at actual characters. All right, hello, Velo. Better way to work with AI. So here we go, the world's best AI client. So I'm assuming this open chat button is what we want. So this is not downloadable. This is.
I do believe it was downloadable, but
Does it have a downloadable version?
yeah, I think it's really just a
Shell. It's just like an
shell.
Electron.
Yeah, it's just an Electron app.
I don't actually see the download button, but
Okay.
it does look like one now. Screenshots. I don't know. Who knows? So here we have. Let's go ahead and sign up here because I need more spam in my inbox. I really need a special email address for just signing up for things on this show.
You can just do Justin plus spam at Madeira Labs, right?
I know, I normally, but not when you do OAuth. So I probably should do OAuth. So, okay, so here we have an ability to create chats, and you have these different models. So Vela is like their own model. I'm not really sure what they're doing there, what they're wrapping, and why they even have that. That's weird. We have GPT-3, 5, 4. I'm assuming that I would need to put an API key in here to use some of these.
I assume so.
Is my guess. But let's just say this. Hey, Vela. How do we want to test this? What do you want to test this prompt with? We're going to test a couple different models.
Well, if you read it, it says it can help you if you have questions about the world, about Velo's service, or I can read and analyze documents, search the web, create images, even run code for you.
Yeah. I think it's basically general use model that has some training on the documentation for this particular app. So I can just say,
How
let's.
how do I create a prompt template for others to use? Let's see. Since we were talking about prompt templates, right?
It's going to be like, I don't know what a prompt template is. What are you talking about?
Well,
Reading files, so it's looking at its documentation.
and by the way, from like a UI treatment perspective, I like this pattern of it just walking you through what it's doing while it's doing it.
Yeah, this is good, right? So there's a UX kind of best practice or heuristic that says, always make sure the state of the system is clear to the user, right? The worst thing you can do, one of the worst things you can do for users, make them question what is the state of the system. It says doing a very good job at that. Launch the persona creation tool by opening the space settings. Enter the name of your AI persona, select a base model. This is creating a GPT. So that's what that is. This is interesting. To utilize the persona in chats, you simply mention it like any other model, thereby incorporating the custom prompt template it represents. That's interesting, right? Because that's a different type of interaction model where you're like calling another model as part of another conversation, as opposed to putting the entire conversation through one model. So that's interesting.
That is.
Now, one thing that okay, so check it out. I can now add other chat members. So I could say, let's add Claude 2.1. And then I could say, Claude, what do you think? Now, Claude's probably not trained on this. But this is interesting. You have two AI agents now that are sort of like talking about each other in a conversation with you. So this is interesting because as these doc edit,
Yeah,
perplexity.
yeah, this is kind of a neat approach.
Yeah. What's interesting about it to me is that in theory, and I don't think this is the case here yet, but in theory, what this would mean is that like as some of these models specialize in certain things, right? You could pull specialists into the conversation. And so this is a really interesting kind of conceptual model for how a conversational interface might work, which is that you're having a conversation with one AI bot that is sort of the general moderator of the conversation. But the ability to like reach out and pull an expert into the conversation that is trained on a specific thing. Hey, let me ask this model. Hey, can you look at this, please? We were wondering about this together. Pull in the expert and ask the expert a question, right? Where you have this kind of augmented conversation as opposed to, again, a one lane conversation with a single model. That is a real different mental model for how to interact with these bots. It's really interesting, actually.
Let's go to the share. Let's look at the options that make this different, right? So on the far right top, you have like
so we can create new chats. We can search them. We have a space. I can invite other people to the space. So this is collaborative.
Space settings.
I can share this chat. Share a note.
Click it. See what it does.
Yeah, I don't know what a note is. Sure. All right, I'm going to share it with you so that you can see what the hell shows up.
I get nothing because I don't think you wrote a note. It's
Cool.
like a blank screen.
Oh, here we go. Mark down notes for this chat. So I could say performance. This seems to perform well when asking it about pasta.
So now try to share, but share the note and the do the last share option.
Show about oops.
There, well,
So
there you go. That's exactly what I get.
you can see what you're gonna get. Yep. Interesting. Okay, so this is interesting though, because this does start to have some aspects of workflow built into it. I don't know that this is the right way to do it, quite frankly, but it is starting to hint at this idea that you could make notes, share it with people. Maybe there is this kind of collaborative desire here. Again, I don't know that it's executed exactly how I would think about executing it, but I do think there's some interesting concepts here. I think the idea of adding a note and being collaborative like that is interesting and obviously hints at exactly what we were talking about. And then the other thing is I really am very interested in this different model of chatting where you're augmenting it, adding different models into the same chat thread. I think is a real change in how you think about interacting with these agents. And it actually, now that I think about it that way, it seems like the only correct way to do it.
It is interesting. So what are the other options on the top right corner?
Up here, we've
It's
just
like,
got some settings so we
all
can
right.
create.
So there's a team. Yep. You can add
We can
people to the team.
So we can create custom personas. So I could say AI AM bot, and we can check a base model for that. Let's just use like GPT 3.5 for now. I want you to act as the smartest bot in the world about AI.
Oh, and you can turn it into an assistant, and
Right.
then
So
have all
this,
those.
you know what I'm curious about is if I go to Claude, oh, so this is interesting. They have abstracted the architecture of a GPT. So I can also essentially create a GPT now using a different model. I was wondering if those options would go away if I was on a non-OpenAI model, but no. So it can do coding, web search, image generation. When able, your assistant can ask other assistants for help. So now this is getting into autogen, right? So this one is really good at, say, character generation. So now what I could do,
I mean, you
think
didn't train the bot on anything, but yes.
I didn't, but what is interesting is I could say, hey, write me a story with a really rich character
Uh, sorry.
about.
Yes. One, great. While you do that. Two, I'm just gonna go ahead. Holy crap! That UI is gonna break in 5 seconds if you add another 50 bots.
Oh, it absolutely will.
I add another 2 bots. I got to see what they do.
Um, you mean like here? Well, it just becomes a longer and longer drop down.
No, but on the when you created new bot, when you click
Uh,
new chat, it added the AMA on top.
yeah. Oh, I am. You know what? I bet it drops down, but now I am very well. Actually, let's just do this.
Yeah, no, it's
Oh,
awful. It's awful. Like this is the stuff,
that's
guys.
a
Like how you
really
can you be an enterprise thing with the potential? Here's what most people don't understand. Enterprise, it's you don't deal with ones or twos. You deal with hundreds or thousands, right?
yes, yes,
Hundreds
yes.
or thousands of personas will be built, each ideally trained in a specific use case. So if you're an enterprise organization, I'm trying hard not to think like name one I've worked with. Let's let's say you're Microsoft, right? You'll end up creating a bot. They wouldn't because they already have their own, but just go with me here. They would create a bot for Excel. They would create a bot for Word. They would create a bot
Yep.
for PowerPoint. They would create a bot for Teams. And then they
Yep.
would probably create flavors of bots for each one of those. So you would have categories of bots. And this is what I was talking about when I meant enterprise. Nobody is doing this kind of structure really well. Ironically, there are a bunch of marketing specific AI tools that are kind of doing it, but they're not allowing you to create your own sets. They're pre-planning and creating sets.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
No one's handling this classification and categorization, I think, very well.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah. And just from a UX pattern standpoint, this is just not going to work. This
Yeah.
is,
So the way I've done it in the past would be, here's our 4 default options, and then custom is a drop down.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Overflow drop down type of pattern. Yeah. Or the whole thing's just a drop down, quite frankly. Um, Interesting. So there
Sorry.
are a couple interesting, cool things here. I mean, how useful is this practically? I don't think it's terribly useful practically. And one of the reasons why I don't find it useful is because it doesn't do the key thing that I need it to do, which is I want to load the same prompt in and I want to see 4 of these models return responses individually so I
No,
can look at them next to each other and
no, and
understand things.
there are tools for that for sure as well.
Yeah, there are.
Um,
There are. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, just real quick, we're going to compare to a different approach. Go to blaze.ai.
Yeah.
Now, this is a marketing one. And by the way, I'm totally jealous of all other web pages. Oh, no, I was actually just going to, but yeah, you can log in. That's fine. I was going to show you just the homepage. So they have, this classification of plan, create versus distribute. And if you scroll further down, what I really like about their approach is like this. They've gone through the hassle of creating those prompts in the background and not showing them to you. And so what they do is they give you a WYSIWYG or a wizard that you have to fill out that fills in the prompt that then goes and generates out and kicks out the content.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can log
You
into
know,
if you want to see it. It's, I mean, frankly, their whole website is gorgeous. Blog posts, you name it. I'm so jealous.
yeah, no, it is really nice. I mean, the comic thing is really hot. You know, one thing that I think is um hmm, I just lost my train of thought. It looks like with this, they are still just kind of wrapping prompts, right?
They are,
Um,
but
yeah,
I think they've done it cleaner. And I think that's what I'm looking for from an AI client. If I was to build an enterprise AI client, I would be wanting people to be able to generate these prompt templates,
yeah,
classify these prompt templates,
yeah.
and then kick them off. So,
Well, yeah,
so let's look at Notion and the slash command, right? If I were to type /AI, I would
yeah,
want to say something like marketing, and then have it. If I type MAR, it would say marketing, and I would say tab, and then it would say, okay, here's all the marketing prompts. Right? It's like,
yeah.
oh, I want social media. Cool. Here's all the social
Yes,
media prompts.
yes, yes,
You
yes.
want it to cascade like that, and
Yeah,
that that would be such a magnifying game changer to
yeah.
prompts.
Yeah, I think also I would even take that one step further, which is to say I think that if prompting remains the primary way in which we interact with these bots, which it probably will because all prompting is just instruction sets, and you're always going to have to give some kind of instruction set, right? Is how or like where is the worldwide community repository of prompts? Where's the GitHub for prompts, right? That then integrates into all of these tools so I can find prompts from community people and do that kind of collaboration.
And this is kind of what I'm thinking from like an enterprise, like a real prompt management tool. The idea would be to do it where you have those layers. Hey, I want marketing, boom, /social media, boom. Here's all the social media ones. And then even they might go into Twitter thread versus Twitter series, Twitter research. It can just go. But by typing it like that and exposing the next layer, and if you're always exposing the next layer, you can go super deep, super fast.
Yep.
And then you can have communities members basically expose those, and you could add them into your system, right? So you have your Notion like template store where you can say, add this to mine, or only
Yep.
use my own.
Yep.
That is a game changer. And
Yep.
I've not seen anything like that. And
Not.
I'm honestly shocked.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of shocked too. I mean, I think that there's a huge ecosystem here that's waiting to be born. You know, you can imagine the product hunt for prompts, right? Um,
But I mean, there are literally, if you go on Gumroad and Twitter and Reddit, you can find legitimately just in Gumroad, Twitter, and Reddit. Yeah, between those three, you'd probably find 500,000 prompts that are available. Some of them are that are crazy good, right?
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely.
But there's no way to manage them. And so that discovery becomes the biggest issue.
Discovery, that's why I'm saying the consolidated marketplace for these things is inevitable because the discovery problem has to get solved.
Do we want to build a prompt database?
I know, right? Oh man. The other question though to think about is, and realistically, does the cost of prompts go to zero as well? I don't think. I find it actually hard to believe that there's going to be an economic model where you're able to make a substantial amount of money on prompts themselves. It's too easy to write. It's too easy to. It's just. I think it's just too. I just think it's hard to build enough marginal value.
And I think the prompts themselves, that's probably true. What's different is the chaining of prompts in the database layer. And so what I mean by
Yes.
that is the only way to get a really good series of prompts is to have the data so you can inject it into there and not force somebody. Otherwise, what you have to do is what Blaze did, which is pop up a form that says, okay, now that you've selected this, now fill in all the details.
Right.
Well, filling in all the details every single time is stupid, right? What you want to do is set your base, right? Like our blog's style is XYZ, and that needs to now be applied to all my posts. And it's that management of the metadata with the prompts and then allowing you to do the new thing. So instead of having to fill out 50 field items, 48 of them are pre-filled and you only have to pick 2 to generate the new thing.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Yep. There's a lot in there that needs to be built. Correct.
Yeah. And so what I think what we're talking about is really like the ontology of prompting. There hasn't been a defined prompt ontology.
Correct. That is true. That is true. Absolutely right.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's enough for us nerding out today.
Yes.
Have a good day, Justin. Have a good day, viewers.